Joining us now to discuss White House border czar Tom Homan, who just visited the Houston airport to monitor the very, very long security lines there. Mr. Homan has also been involved in the talks on Capitol Hill to end the shutdown. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Homan. President Trump now says that there is, in fact, a way to pay TSA workers, possibly as soon as tomorrow. Can TSA agents expect a paycheck tomorrow, and when can Americans expect the long wait times to die down?
Well, as soon as Congress opens up the government and funds the Department of Homeland Security, that's what needs to happen. But yeah, I talked to Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen yesterday. There is a plan to get these TSA agents paid, hopefully by tomorrow, Tuesday. So yeah, it's good news because these TSA officers are struggling. They can't feed their families or pay their rent. Your heart goes out to them because they're sitting there right now working very hard and not being paid while members of Congress down on vacation getting paid. It's ridiculous.
I don't disagree. If the administration had the power to move funds around to pay TSA agents this whole time, why did it take 41 days to do it? And how long will this money last?
Well, look, paying TSA agents doesn't pay the rest of the Department of Homeland Security. You got the Coast Guard, you got CISA, you got the men and women Secret Service. You got a lot of people working at the Department of Homeland Security that isn't getting paid. And even though, and we got the mission support under TSA, under ICE, right? ICE officers, excuse me, they'll be getting paid, but how about the mission support people, the people that keep the lights on and do all the things that they have to do so ICE agents go out there and do their job. So, they just need to fund the Department of Homeland Security. After all, we're talking about the Department of Homeland Security in a time we have a heightened threat posture right now in this country because of what's going on in the world. This should be the last thing they're fighting over funding for.
Right, but if President Trump had the power to pay TSA agents this whole time, why only start doing it now?
Look, I don't understand. Look, I'm a cop. I don't understand the whole, appropriations language, appropriations law. I'm just glad that President Trump is able to pay the TSA agents. At least that's a start. But again, there's a lot more, many more, thousands of more, tens of thousands of more DHS employees who are not being paid that need to be paid.
Once TSA agents start getting paid, will ICE agents leave the airports?
We'll see. It depends how many TSA agents come back to work, how many TSA agents have actually quit and have no plan coming back to work. I'm working very closely with the TSA administrator and the ICE director to decide what airport needs what. But, God bless the men and women of ICE. So they're doing a job. They're plugging those holes. They're keeping the security of the airport at a high level, again, because of the heightened threat, that we're in right now. Thank God the the ICE agents are there, protecting the exit lanes, doing identification checks, plugging the security holes. We got to keep the airport safe. We got to keep the American people, going through those lines. And ICE is helping, shorten those lines and adding security to each and every airport around the country.
So it's been a week since President Trump sent those ICE agents into airports to help with security. The lines are still obviously bad. I'm not blaming that on ICE, but the lines are still bad. The head of the union overseeing TSA, Everett Kelly, he told the New York Times, quote, "The administration sent ICE agents to airports as replacement workers. That's like giving a person dying of pneumonia a teaspoon of cough syrup. It doesn't address the problem, and it's not going to work." But specifically, you mentioned this just a second ago, but if you could go into more detail, what have ICE agents at airports been doing? What have they actually accomplished?
Well, look, the wait lines have decreased. I was in Houston. Wait lines decreased in about half. We got additional agents going to Baltimore yesterday to bring those lines down. And I can understand the TSA union's position. They want to be paid and they're frustrated. But however, the facts are every place we send ICE officers, the lines have decreased and they need to decrease more. Look, they're checking identification before you go to screening. We're not going to have an ICE officer looking at x-ray images deciding what bags need to be secondary. That's a high level of training. But we can check IDs before they get to that machine. We can cover exits to make sure that people don't enter through the exits. That takes that TSA agent off that security line and put him on an x-ray machine. We're plugging other security holes. We want to keep the airport safe. So we're doing the job TSA is asking us to do so their officers can get back to main screening.
For the first time since the shutdown began, just a few days ago, Democrats and Republicans came together. They passed this compromise bill in the Senate. Republican leader John Thune said it was a good bill because ICE and CBP are already funded because of the One Big Beautiful bill passed last year. He said the Democrats got zero restrictions that would prevent ICE and CBP agents from doing their job safely. And Thune also said ICE and CBP are going to end up getting even more funding through budget reconciliation. So why would President Trump oppose this deal that John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, says is a good deal?
President Trump wants the entire Department of Homeland Security funded. He wants the government open and funded. And look, I've been on Capitol Hill talking to both sides, and bottom lines, they want changes in ICE tactics. They want changes in policies. Look, the same laws that ICE follows today, the same laws about immigration enforcement have been in place during the Clinton, Obama, and now. The laws hasn't changed. And the things we're talking about, they want to prevent ICE from doing their job. They can say they don't want to abolish ICE. I'm in the room. They want to change operations so we arrest less people. And look, the conversation's gone good. We talk about body cameras. Well, pass the budget, and there's $120 million to buy body cameras. They want to talk about sensitive location and enforcement at sensitive locations, but they can't point to one instance, not one, where we've arrested anybody in a church or anybody inside of a hospital. There has been no issues like that. We don't have a sensitive location policies, but we're already practicing sensitive location, that we don't do the operations there unless there's a significant national security threat or a significant national security threat. They have no sanctuary, but they can't point to a single instance we arrested an alien inside of a church or hospital. So these discussions can continue, but why can't they continue these discussions and open the Department of Homeland Security while we do that? They're holding the department hostage because they don't like what ICE is doing. And ICE is enforcing the laws they enacted. If they don't like what ICE is doing, then change the law. That's your job.
Well, I think some of the issues that they've raised have to do with ways that ICE is doing its job differently now than they were doing it even in the first Trump administration, having to do with a different kind of warrant, having to do with ICE agents wearing masks. And obviously this all comes in the wake of ICE detaining and arresting American citizens mistakenly, and obviously Renee Good and Mr. Preddy, Alex Preddy, being killed on the streets of Minneapolis. It's not exactly the same as how things have always been done.
The laws are exactly the same. Let's talk about the masks. You don't see ICE wearing masks inside the airports because you're not on the street arresting criminals. You got the agitators who cross the line and threaten ICE agents. The same people in the Democratic Congress that want ICE to take off the mask are the same people who say ICE is going to shoot people inside airports. I mean, you can't have it both ways. So if you want ICE to take the mask off, the threat level has to decrease. It's up 8,000% increase in threats against ICE officers. And that's because a lot of the rhetoric coming from the Hill. Stop calling ICE Nazis and racist. Stop saying they're going to shoot people inside airports. That's going to drive the threat level down, and we can talk about masks. So, we got to work together at this, but the ICE is doing the same thing they've done during 40 years I've been doing it. Again, they're enforcing the laws that they enacted. If they don't like it, change the law. The law hasn't changed. The difference is, under the last 4 years of Joe Biden, they weren't enforcing the law. Now ICE is actually enforcing the law, doing their job, and they don't like it. If they don't like what ICE is doing, change the law.
Let me ask you about a separate topic. Several administration officials have discussed and have not ruled out the idea of sending ICE agents to polling locations during the midterm elections this November. Has President Trump asked ICE to start making any sort of plans to go to polling sites during the midterms?
I've had no discussions about that with President Trump or Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen. Has not came up in any conversation.
Tom Homan, we always appreciate your coming by. Thank you so much, sir. I hope you have a nice rest of your weekend.